Hey guys, so this is the last set of notes we have for Unit 3 and is a very tricky concept. So basically with this one, we're going to solve for variables, solve equations with more than one variable. So you will have a variable or a letter in your answer when you do these, okay? So looking at the first example, we are asked for, in part one, we're asked to solve for A, okay? So in these examples, only one thing is happening to A, and we're going to do the opposite, just like if we were solving a one-step equation. So in the first one, A is being added by B. So in order to get rid of the B, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to subtract B, always from both sides of my equation. But watch what my answer looks like. When I subtract B, it's gone over on the left-hand side, and you have A equals, I'm going to write my answer 5 minus B, and that's a final answer. So your answer is going to have a letter in it. If it doesn't have a letter in it or a variable in it, then it is not correct. Okay? In the next one, we asked what is happening to A. We are asked what is happening to A, and we do the opposite. So A is being subtracted by B. So instead of subtracting B, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to add B to both sides. When I do that, I'm left with A equals -2 plus B. Done. Okay? In the third example, I have A is being multiplied by B. So in order to get rid of the multiplication, I'm going to divide by B. So if I divide both sides by B, I'm left with A equals 4 divided by B. Final answer. And then in the last one, A is being divided by -2. So in order to get rid of the dividing, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to multiply both sides by -2. When I do that, I'm left with, it's gone over on the left-hand side, I'm left with A equals -2 times B, which can be written as -2B. And that's how you write the last way. So that is part one, which is just one thing happening to the variable. Part two is now two things are happening to the variable, so you're going to have to do a two-step equations to solve part two. So in part two, they're asking us to solve for y for all of these. So my first step is to get rid of what is with the y. Y is being added by a 3x by a -3x. So I'm going to do the opposite because I want to move this -3x onto the other side. So since it's negative, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to add 3x onto both sides of my equations. When I do that, I'm left with y equals -4 plus 3x. Done. This is actually only a one-step problem. Okay, I thought that there were going to be two steps, but it's still only one step. You're just going to have to make sure you put a variable in your answer. That one is done. The next one, we have 4x plus 2y is equal to -6. This will be a two-step problem. First step, move my 4x onto the other side of my equation because I'm trying to get y by itself. So in order to do that, I got to do the opposite, and I got to subtract 4x from both sides. When I do that, I'm left with 2y equals -6 minus 4x. I'm not combining anything. I'm just writing it out next to one another. Then my next step, my second step, is to get rid of the 2 and solve for the y. So since 2y means 2 times y, the opposite of times is dividing. So I'm going to divide by 2 to all three pieces. When I do that, I'm left with a final answer of y equals -6 divided by 2 is -3. -4 divided by 2 is -2x. There's our final answer. Okay, so that was a two-step. Number 3 is also another two-step. The third problem on here is also another two-step. So we have to first move the -x onto the other side to get y by itself by doing the opposite. So I'm going to add x here, and then I'm going to add x onto the other side. When I do that, I'm left with 3y equals 9 plus x. Nothing is combined, just written right next to one another. And then my next step is to get rid of this 3 since it means 3 times y. The opposite of times is dividing, so I'm going to divide by 3 to all three pieces. When I do that, I'm left with a final answer of y equals 9 divided by 3 is 3 plus x divided by 3. There's our final answer. Okay, and then the last example. So in the last example, I'm again going to move the x out of the way. So first step, let's get this 2x onto the other side by doing the opposite. Since it's positive, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides of my equation. When I do that, I now get negative 5y on the left-hand side equals negative 15 minus 2x. Just write them next to one another. And then my final step is to get rid of the negative 5 that's in front of the y. Negative 5y means negative 5 times y. And the opposite of times is dividing. So I'm going to divide by negative 5 to all three pieces. When I do that, I am left with a final answer of y equals negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. A negative divided by a negative here is a positive, and I'm just going to leave this as a fraction. That is totally fine to leave this as a positive 2 over 5x. Okay? So as always, take your time with this. It's a little bit tricky and it's a little bit confusing because of the extra variable in there, but know that you're always going to have an x or a b or a c in your answer. Okay? All right, as always, let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.